Welcome to Coruzant Technologies, home of the Digital Executive Podcast.
Welcome to the Digital Executive. Today's guest is Sean Austin. Sean Austin is co-founder, CEO, and the mastermind and driving force behind Helios. From leading the strategic mission and business development to rolling up his sleeves for the hands-on work of daily operations, Sean is invested in elevating the future of voice technology through tone. Over 15 years ago, when Sean heard about brain scientist Dr. Schock at his alma mater of Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, it was his vision to merge the charisma of a product visionary with the scientific mastery of a modern Wozniak. It all started at 19 years old when Sean founded his own audio biometric analysis company advised by Dr. Schock. Well, good afternoon, Sean. Welcome to the show.
Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Awesome, Sean. I appreciate you being here. And we were just talking about this big storm rolling through. So I'm glad we were able to survive the holidays, number one, but also survive that big bomb cyclone. But anyway, Sean, we want to talk about your story and your company and what you're doing out there. So we're going to just jump right into these questions here. Let's talk a little bit about your career in technology. You were a programmer, a product manager. Now you're the co-founder and CEO of Helios. Could you share with our audience the secret to your career growth and what inspires you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I actually always have been very interested from an early age on technology, right? What it can mean to fuse sort of business with what's possible. So from probably the age of 18, I was very deep in that trajectory, right? So going to a college that gave me a technical background, gave me the capabilities to support that. So I did computer science as a component of like learning, right? And kind of knew that fusion of technical with business was where I wanted to go. So that's where my kind of like academic career started, or my college days, and then consistently wanted to find that fusion in startups. So had lucky enough to actually get paired with a few startups. One being the first company that Spotify acquired way back when. I think that's now 10 years ago. I joined that as the first US kind of hire, and that kind of like got the bug with me with startups. I mean, I had my own, then I went to that one, but that like fusion of technology, like a more technical degree with what's possible. So startups being kind of this embodiment of what's possible in the world and what could be, really like, I guess, what could be, what these big opportunities and big changing moments. So Spotify was one for music. Stayed with them for years. Joined actually a company that let me build startups. So support them on the technical side as a product manager and really work with their co-founders to build their initial MVPs. Worked out in Sweden at a company for a buy now, pay later company called Klarna, which had some rapid growth too, with everything going on with kind of buy now, pay later companies. And then 2017, came back and said with my co-founder I've known for a decade that fusion of really like hard technical problems, right? To your question of what like drives me or interests me, and what's possible. We said like, what would happen if we tried to do this? So he's an academic at the highest caliber, so way more technical than I, which always has interested me. And then I have a pretty technical background, and we said that this scale I've seen mixed with his background, and his interest and his curiosity, we said Helios is an idea that we get really excited about.
I love that story, Sean. I really do appreciate it. You had that bug in you early on as an entrepreneur, and we have a ton of CEOs and executives, but a lot of entrepreneurs, and you can always tell that they got this fire in them. And I know entrepreneurship's not easy, but it's just really refreshing and rewarding to hear those types of guests. So thank you very much. And Sean, switching gears a little bit, let's talk about Helios a little bit. Helios delivers a new category of investor insights where investors can now leverage the power of voice to increase confidence in their trading decisions. Could you maybe talk to us about this and how you leverage natural language processing?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Helios, we have a mission to bring transparency to actually more than the financial markets even, but financial markets as a major beachhead. It's this idea that when you speak, 38% of a message is your tone of voice. So human beings are the most, as we kind of all know, as the most advanced like communication and species and animal, whatever word you want to use, that's ever existed to our knowledge. And a big piece of that is tone. So tone lets us change, sarcasm lets us change messages and convey them in different ways. And the great part about Helios is, and anyone working in this space, is that they understand tone has a lot of value. So when you think about 38% of a message is captured in that, that basically means intelligence can be derived from it, interpretation can be enhanced or completed. It's just core to communication. So what we've done is orient a platform and technology around analyzing that. So it is, as you can probably imagine, not too easy to pull that off. Like, it doesn't really exist in the way we've designed it, and it doesn't exist at all, except for us with financial markets. But when a CEO, like I'm talking, for instance, or anyone on a public call, CEO, CFO, COO is doing an earnings call, quarterly earnings call, their tone means something. So it has a slight swizzle. It doesn't probably mean they're being sarcastic, but it could. But there's a big component of the sort of like belief in the future. So if you talk about like a product that's going to launch or a merger, or even if you don't talk about a merger, actually, we can detect some things from tone. That audio is captured, we process it, and it's really around that idea of getting transparency out there. So transparency drives better market efficiency. It drives better pricing. And if you can price better, you can trade better. If you can trade better, that's a very important thing for, in a way, actually for the world, right? Like, not to go down a rabbit hole for more than maybe 15 seconds, but we know of some very recent events of, crypto exchanges not being transparent. A lot of things have happened beyond crypto. It's not just that space, but a lot of things have shown where transparency is paramount. So tone of voice isn't a perfect lens into everything that's happening, but people speak a lot. I'm talking right now on something, talking on a podcast, right? Speaking of something. If you could analyze this tone and capture this 38% all the time, you're going to have better understanding. And what that leads you to really depends on the exact position you are and exactly what you do as a sort of application or a company. But think about people trading, think about people doing research, think about private equity analyzing firms and doing due diligence, right? There's, millions of conversations, billions of hours of conversations happening across the world.
Thank you for sharing that. And I appreciate that. I had not, we've heard the application of NLP used in many different industries, but yours is certainly unique, and I'm very excited to learn more about it. So, Sean, we're a technology publication and we focus on emerging tech. So we do like to get in the weeds a little bit if we can, if you're comfortable. You're obviously leveraging some new and emerging tech in your tech stack. Could you possibly share something with us today?
Yeah, I go sure a bunch, except maybe like code snippets. But the idea, actually, number one, top of the funnel is that to be really precise, it's not NLP. So natural language processing is a domain that's been around for a reasonable amount of time in financial markets, probably about 15 years as a technology stack. That actually will do speech to text, right? Like ASR, automatic speech recognition type baselines, right? So that's sort of base technology that'll then pipe into all the different ways of processing that to get understanding. So think of like NLU, natural language understanding on top of that. So there is a whole stack built around the language component, and then multi-language, right, as an extension. So a lot of very large companies now, like DeepGram, who I think just closed like a $75 million round, even with everything going on. So they're doing quite well. Companies like Symbol, for our space, companies like Alexandria Technology. So a lot, and then there's tons and tons, like Google has theirs, right? So what we do is tonal analysis. So it's basically speech analytics or sound engineering is another way to speak of it, right? So we take in the same core files, like corpus of audio, but we don't do any deconstruction on the NLP side or anything on the language side and using anything NLP or NLU related. We ultimately take the millisecond waveforms, right? And we translate those into meaningful analysis and meaningful understanding. So it's a very different process. Ultimately, you fuse them together. So talk about fusion of technology and business beforehand, but you need to take those because like we're having a conversation where I'm using tones and I'm using language, right? So they go together, but the actual technologies is different. So what we've done and some kind of important details, still kind of high level, but we use Google Cloud for all this processing. right? So we actually have had to design our algorithms from scratch. So you think about pulling in 500,000 hour-long MP3s or MP4s. The process of actually ingesting those is what I've done in the past. So at Helios, we knew how to go about big data processing and ingestion and storage. So to think about like all the pieces you need to do to store that enormous data set and then actually compute over it. So our system actually has tons of compute cores and resources running in the cloud to constantly run through training. So that is for us kind of our bread and butter is a combination of big data intake, ingestion, storage, because that gets pricey, acquisition, I guess, even of the data. And then a lot of training over a gigantic data set, right? So that needs to be optimized in some ways. And then ultimately you build models, deployable models and predictions off of it that need to be rigorously tested for the financial markets. So if you have a implied volatility forecast for 30 days, which is a model that's been created off of this unique data set that we've also created, then that's the end goal is, can you have these forecasts? Can you have these scores built upon voice? Could you ultimately at one point do it around sales conversions on a call, right? By the voice tone, if someone sounds like they're, very excited about the product or conversation. But that pipeline, right? That pipeline is what's so valuable at Helios. It's extremely scaled at this point and fully deployed, right? Customers on it.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate you sharing. And again, we do have a lot of techies in our audience, and we do like to get in the weeds a little bit, but I do appreciate the share in that. And Sean, last question here for you today. Can you share something from your career experience that might be helpful for those looking to grow their career in either tech or entrepreneurship?
Yeah. And I was thinking about this for a while beforehand because I didn't want to just say whatever the first thing that came out of my mind was, because it'd probably be less impactful. So the one piece I tell people actually a lot. So people who've been on my teams who are like learning product or doing more product, because essentially I've been doing product for 15 years or 16 years now, like one way, shape or form. The most important thing I think ever told anyone or like instilled in my head is that which is not the first time someone said this, but totally would reinforce it, is that lean concept. So not waiting for perfection, which feels very, very strange, I think, at a lot of times. And it does not always apply to every industry, I think. Like if you're making a movie, I think that's a different scenario. If you're dropping, 100 million on something that you have to send out one time. But when you think about software, so anyone in this space, especially software, right? Hardware is then a little different too. But this idea of make sure you can just totally strip it down to the absolute core. And that doesn't, a lot of times that doesn't have to be expensive with all the resources now available. So it's very, I think, possible in a very lean way to make something, it could be quick too, but something very lean and skinny and that solves a problem. I try to do that every single day we're doing anything. So it's always easy to like bloat it and think you need more time and wait to be perfect. And it's really like people thinking they're mitigating risk or being safe. What I've had to continue the battle with is flipping that. So by getting it out there, seeing what someone thinks, a lot of people in the beginning of Helios saw the promise, but could not use the early stage prototype and product, but we still got it out there. I still had 100 conversations with quantitative investors. I was not, I was open and transparent about what it was, but the promise of what it could be, and all that shaping and conversation always drives value. And I would just say it has always applied for everything I've done in software. So it's hard to embody it, I think, because it's so counterintuitive at times.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate that. And again, that helps a lot of people here that are again in tech, or maybe they're trying to get into entrepreneurship, but very helpful gems that you shared with us today. So I appreciate that. And Sean, it was a pleasure having you on today, and I look forward to speaking with you real soon.
Thank you. And thanks for having me.
Bye for now.